First, I'd like to apologize for keeping you waiting. You're right, my attendance is somewhat last minute, but to OJK, my sincere thanks for the invitation, because I'm supposed to be in Paris tomorrow and Friday for the OECD meetings, and I get a lot of complaints from a lot of trade ministers. Why are you not coming, right? So at least I can tell them, well, at least I show up to the OECD meeting in Jakarta. So that was a small excuse. I think what I can share at this very propitious meeting between OECD and OJK is the following. I think financial inclusion and financial literacy, certainly for small, medium enterprises, but actually for the public at large, I think we fully recognize that it's a key issue, a critical issue, right? I think we realize it's a key issue, number one, for domestic capital formation, right? I think Indonesia is in a situation where our demand for capital regularly outpaces our supply of capital. So that's one reason why we have a current account deficit, right? We have to keep importing capital to finance our investment. Now, one solution, of course, is more domestic capital formation, right? The more workers, farmers, households, the public can be brought into the financial sector, right? The more we have domestic savings, the more we have domestic capital, and then, of course, we count on the financial sector authorities, such as OJK, to create a well-functioning financial sector. It can channel this domestic capital to investment purposes, right? So number one, we fully recognize the importance of financial inclusion, financial literacy to boost domestic capital formation. Secondly, it's a critical step in bringing a lot of economic activity that is currently in what we would call the informal sector into the formal sector, right? Once people open a bank account, once people receive and disperse funds through the financial sector, they become registered, right? They become mappable. They become part of our national databases, if you will, and in that sense, they then become reachable for national welfare programs, national outreach programs, and the like. From my perspective, it's very interesting also because, and I'm curious to know how applicable this is in other third world countries. But it's interesting, specifically in the trade sector. For example, the part where farmers, ranchers, for example, chicken farmers, and fishermen try to sell their product. We have a strange situation where the price that they're able to obtain is very low, right? But the price which the consumer has to pay is very high. And between producer and consumer, there's a very long supply chain, right? In Indonesia, we call them tengkulak, right? There's a lot of, I don't know what would be the English word for it, intermediaries, but there's kind of, we need a slightly more negative word than just intermediary, because what they really do is they do collect produce from the farmers and the fishermen, but it's bundled with loan sharking, you see. So they give cash loans to the farmers, to the fishermen, on no documentation, like zero documentation, just give the cash. and then take repayment in the form of produce or fish or other. But the effective interest rate is like 600% per annum, right? And that's one tool which these intermediaries use to depress the price that is paid to farmers and fishermen and the like, right? Now, the role of financial literacy and financial inclusion is to move the farmers, move the fishermen, move the ranchers away from this loan sharking system and towards the formal financial sector, right? If they can borrow from banks at even, 18, 12, or more at 9%, right? Then they don't have to pay this 300%, 400%, 500% effective interest rates to the kulaks, to these, very rent-seeking intermediaries, and that should enable them to sell their produce at a higher price, right? So this is a very concrete example where financial literacy, right, understanding what are effective interest rates, what are you actually borrowing at, for example, understanding the benefit of borrowing from the formal sector rather than from the informal sector, right, from loan sharks, and the impact on farmer income, fisherman income is very, very large. Now, I think my next comment would be I'm very appreciative to OJK as an organizer for inviting a representative from the Ministry of Communications, of Telecoms, and IT, because I think one part of President Jokowi's and Vice President Kala's vision, right, is to just leapfrog, right? To take full advantage of the digital revolution that we're in the midst of. Smartphones, cloud computing, crowdsourcing and the like, digital applications, and try to use those technologies to leapfrog straight away, right? So for example, if we could immediately go to branchless banking or to mobile applications for reaching the underbanked or the fishermen and the farmers, that probably saves us potentially a decade that we would otherwise have to spend building out branch networks, physical delivery mechanisms, and the like, right? So I think it's very appropriate, very timely that the discussion on financial inclusion, financial literacy, taken a very heavy dose of digital technology and digital applications. Thank you.